Too late now. I already did it. Man, so it's so good. Let's jump right in today. I'm so excited. We are in week 4 of our Messenger series. If you're joining us online, we would love if you could join us here in person every Sunday, 11 a.m. We meet here for church, but we're glad you could join us online. And if you missed any of our other messages, they're on our YouTube channel. You can catch up. But today we're jumping into week 4 as we're going through the messengers in the Old Testament, the prophets, not all of them, but some of the major prophets of the Old Testament that we've looked at already. And we just want to kind of keep diving into how did God use them? How does God using them apply to my life today? Because we always tell people the Bible's not some unrelevant or irrelevant book from thousands of years ago. It still speaks to us today just as loudly as it spoke to the people as it was being written. And when we look at these prophets, these amazing men of God, we can see that they're just ordinary people that were used by an extraordinary God. And that can speak into our lives today because there's a lot of times, and Manny and I were talking before service about this. I have to clarify one of the Mannys. We got like 3 or 4 in the church. So Manny Barrios. So he and I were talking. So there you go, in case you were confused. And sometimes we approach the power of God with this like weak, unexpected attitude. Man, we need to approach the power of God with a reverence, yes, but with a strength that he has prepared and called victory over our lives. And how many times do we hold him back from using that same power in our lives, just like some of these prophets? So we're looking at another one, and today we're going to look at the prophet Ezekiel. Ezekiel. His name actually means strengthened by God. That's what his name actually means, strengthened by God. So Ezekiel. Not, probably we may not have heard of him very much unless you've read through the Bible or been in church for any period of time. We might know Moses and we know David and some of the others, but Ezekiel may not be as well known, which as I was studying for this message, and by the way, each one of these prophets could be their whole series, each one of them. The book of Ezekiel, I literally forgot until I started reading through it again for this, how amazing the book of Ezekiel is, how beautiful the book of Ezekiel is. And we're going to read some verses out of there that you're probably going to go, oh, that's out of Ezekiel? I didn't know that. Because we all experience that sometimes. But let's kind of look at some of the stuff about Ezekiel. Now, we talked last week about Jeremiah. And I shared how Jeremiah and Daniel were in the same time period, right? That they were in that time period where the nation of Israel, well, actually the southern kingdom of Judah, got taken away into Babylon, and they were both prophets at that same time frame. Ezekiel, guess what? He's number 3 in that same time frame. These were all happening in the exact same time frame. So now we have Jeremiah, Daniel, and Ezekiel. 3 of the major prophets of the Old Testament all being used by God in the same exact time period. To me, that speaks of the authority of God, the planning of God, that he would say, I need at least 3 major prophets just dealing with this one situation for my people. One wasn't good enough. You see, we kind of learn as we've gone through them that each one of them was used differently by God. That, you see, Daniel was taken into the courts of the king himself. He had access to speak directly to the king and make visions of God known to the king. Jeremiah spoke to many of the officials and other leaders. Ezekiel's in the trenches. He's the guy directly with the people on the streets in Babylon speaking to the nation of Israel. He's the one getting down and dirty like those of us were kind of out in the streets yesterday passing out water bottles. And can I say it's amazing to see how skeptical people in Miami are? Walking up to a car going, and you can't say you don't hear me. I don't care how thick your windows are. I have a very loud voice. It's free. Free water. No? It's free. And they're doing this. They don't even want to make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. And we are so skeptical about everything that people want to give us for free, including the gospel. But I'll get into that in just a minute. Somebody's giving you something for free, and I don't want that. If it's too good to be true, I'd rather not even ask. Okay. But we're going to look at that and kind of how was God using Ezekiel directly with the people, down on the streets, dealing with these people. And what's amazing is, as we learn and we study about our Bible, because I know we're doing the Bible recap, a lot of us, we're reading through the Bible in a year, you're going to come to find out that even their books, these three prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, their books line up in the Old Testament in order. It's Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel. So they're even in order. So I don't know how I missed it all those times of studying the Bible that, hey, Rich, I even put them in order, bro. They were all the exact same time frame going into Babylon. So today, we're going to look at a message that I've entitled, See Me Through It. See Me Through It. Now why see? Why see, like vision? Well, one thing about Ezekiel, much like Daniel, God gave him incredible, mind-blowing visions of what God was doing, of God's presence with his people, of God being amongst his people. He was giving Ezekiel visions that if most of us had somebody come up and share a vision like that with us, we would think they're on drugs probably. So when did you see these visions? And what did you take just before you saw these visions? Just to be real, you know me, I never tried to over spiritualize. Oh my gosh, we would listen to everything if somebody came up. No, you would not. Literally, people wouldn't listen to us giving out free bottles of water yesterday. You think somebody's going to come up and give you a vision that God gave them, like some of these, and you're going to go, oh, absolutely, sure. He's crazy. And we'll think that of people. Let's be real. Let's be honest. But we have to understand when God is speaking through somebody. So, who was Ezekiel? Well, Ezekiel, much like Jeremiah, was actually raised in a priestly family. Were he not taken away and taken into captivity into Babylon, he was actually he was coming up on the age of 30, which was when a lot of the priests would get installed as a practicing priest within the temples and everything. So before he was old enough to be officially installed as a priest, he was taken away into Babylon, taken into captivity. And that's where God decides to visit him. God waits until he's taken out of Judah, he's taken away into captivity. Now is when God's going to show up and say, hey, buddy, I got a job for you to do. And much like Jeremiah, he charged Ezekiel with the task of going out and telling a rebellious group of people, God's own children, hey, turn away from your false gods and your false worshiping and turn back to the one true God. But he wasn't doing it with the officials and all. He's down on the streets doing it to where people are going to kind of look at him funky. Now, I don't have time to get into everything with Ezekiel, but if you study on Ezekiel a little bit, he was what you would call a little more theatrical. We'll call it theatrical. God actually gave him instructions on more than once to do a public display to show the people. One time he had to take tablets and he actually created a reenactment of the siege of Judah by Babylon. How crazy he must have looked going, look everybody, I'm playing with this stuff. And look, we got taken out. It's like a kid playing with action figures. Because when boys play with them, it's not dolls, it's action figures. And he's playing with them. And there was another time that he was bound up in ropes and laid on his side for almost an entire year, eating while he was on his side and everything else to kind of show captivity of the people. This one ain't working. I'll turn this one off. probably think they were on something, because he's describing these almost indescribable beings, this indescribable presence. You know what I love about that? That just speaks of the majesty of God. To hear a human's perspective trying to describe something so majestic, it sounds crazy to people, because you can't describe certain things. I mean, I have a tough time. Before I went to the Grand Canyon, people would try and describe it to me. All I understood was it's a giant hole in the ground. I can go dig one in my backyard and go, ooh, a hole. But until you stand on the rim, on the edge, and I was that bad child that literally, Yoli was mad at me because I literally went out and stood on the edge like an idiot, looking down at a 5,000-foot drop. And then I look back and go, I'm being dumb right now, aren't I? And she's way back there going, yes, you are. Felt like a kid. Get back over here. I never understood it until I saw it, until I experienced it. That's what I feel like Ezekiel's trying to describe here. We read these visions of God and his glory and his majesty and his strength, and it sounds crazy because I can't picture it. Now, he goes on to continue describing these creatures, these figures, if you will, that they each had the form of a man. And I'll try and describe this. You can look up on Google later, like images of the four beings that Ezekiel saw. And you'll get artist renderings, and they all differ a little bit because we're trying to piece this together. But basically, it was four figures, so you can imagine like a square, a figure on each corner. Each figure had four wings, one set of wings against his body and another set of wings up, almost creating like a structure around. Each one had four faces, that of a man, that of a lion, that of an eagle, and that of an ox. So four different directions. And they had these giant flaming wheels within a wheel next to them. The best way I can describe it is imagine spinning rims or something like that. I don't know. But it's a wheel within a wheel. What was he describing? These creatures carried on their wing structures the platform on which sat the throne of God. God is traveling around when he sees to his people on this majestic throne seat, that these four creatures each have four faces. They never turn. In other words, they don't turn their gaze. They look in the direction God has put them on, and if they got to move in another direction, this one would stay this way, and they look that way, the other creature goes that way. Imagine that, never moving my gaze from where God pointed me to. That's what the throne seat of God that Ezekiel's trying to describe here, that God is showing him. Well, why was God showing him this? I mean, we kind of think about it. It's cool that he showed that to Ezekiel, Rich, but why? Well, you got to understand, as we've gone through some of the Old Testament, the glory of God was always with the Israelites in what? When they had the Ark of the Covenant. They would create the Holy of Holies. They would create these tabernacles where God would dwell. And God's presence would come down on the people in cloud form and talk to them. You see, the glory of God, although God is everywhere, he would reserve his glory for his people to worship him in. So understanding the fact that God is showing Ezekiel his glory in a foreign land kind of threw Ezekiel off, like, God, why are you showing me your glory here? You need to be in the temple. Well, the problem is the temple was being destroyed in the city of Judah. Destroyed, wiped out. God was showing Ezekiel, and if you read through it one day in chapter 10, God was showing him, I'm taking my glory away from the people. That's why he was on the throne seat on these four figures, moving him, literally showing Ezekiel, I am taking my glory away from you and moving it off. That to me sounds devastating. And this is why we need to understand our God. That yes, our God is a loving God. He's there for us. But understand, he also allows us to face our consequences for our actions. And sometimes we have this wrong perspective of God that you need to be there when I'm ready for you. And God is showing Ezekiel, let my people know I'm removing my glory from them. You're going to be on your own for a while. Y'all got yourself into this mess. And I'm going to show you, you're not getting out of this mess without me. God will allow that for the ultimate understanding of eternity with him, overcoming the small pain and suffering in the temporary. And I know we don't want to hear about that stuff, but we need to understand it's biblical. It's written. It shows us this. So we can't just skim over these types of verses. We need to understand God doesn't like wavering children. God doesn't like in and out. He doesn't like lukewarm like we learned about in Revelation. He likes people that are committed and sold out for him. Well, what's amazing is here Ezekiel is seeing this vision. He's seeing this incredible throne seat and glory of God. And then all of a sudden, he realizes, oh, he's getting ready to speak to me. So he falls flat on his face. Bam. If you ever read that in the Bible, if you ever hear like, oh, I laid prostrate before the Lord, that just means face down on your belly, on your stomach, face down. That's prostrate, in case you ever read that and you wonder. Basically, that's how people were in the presence of God. You hit your face, because we don't even deserve to look at him. So Ezekiel went down. But what's awesome is in Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 1 through 3, this is the response as Ezekiel flops down face first. He said to me, Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you. As he spoke, the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet, and I heard him speaking to me. He said, Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been in revolt against me to this very day. I love, in my own thought process, I'm envisioning Ezekiel hits the deck, and the Holy Spirit comes upon him and almost like spiritually grabs him by the collar and just rips him right up to his feet. And, oh, hey, I'm up now. Stand up and I will speak to you. I don't know. That to me, understand that posture, that typically what would God say if he was going to be in somebody's presence? He would say, do not look upon me, right? Take off your sandals, for where you are is holy ground. God said, look at me. It's kind of like when my dad, and I always hated this, because I always thought I was so tough until my dad would yell at me, and you start doing one of these numbers. Look at me. I don't want to. Look me in the eye. I really don't want to do that. And I feel that's what Ezekiel was like here. God was looking at him, and this is where we have to understand God has emotions. God was not a happy camper right now. God was not happy with the nation. And Ezekiel's going to be his prophet to tell the people this. Well, he wants to roughen him up a little bit in a good way. And he's telling him, no, you get on your feet and you look at me when I'm speaking to you. Because what I got to tell you, you probably ain't going to want to do. Why? Because God is getting ready to send him out to a rebellious nation time and time again that have rebelled against God. How would we deal with that if we were God? Not that we're being blasphemous, but let's put on our I think I'm God cap. Because let's be honest, most of us put that cap on way too often, that we think we know what we're doing. And we go, let me put on my God cap. All right. If I had to tell these people over and over and over again to do this, and they keep going against me. Do this, and they keep going against me. Not with a show of hands, but how many of us, if we were Moses, would have taken God up on the offer when God said, you know what? Let me wipe these people out, Moses, and I'll start a whole new nation through you. If most of us were Moses, come on. Yet God, in his love and his wisdom and his patience. This is why when, like I always caution, careful what you pray for, because what? You just might get it. I always caution people, one of the craziest prayers you can have come off your mouth, because I did it and I learned the hard way. Oh God, teach me patience. Stop. Oh, you said it already. Teach me patience. What happens when you're taught something? There's a lesson that goes along with it. And when we say, God, teach me patience, look how bad the people of Israel and the nation of Israel tried his patience. And you want him to teach you patience? Woo! Be ready, because it's a hard lesson. Sometimes I'm almost like, we want to play word games with God. God, what if I said, give me patience? Would that work better? No lessons, just give me your patience. Oh, that'd be so much easier. But if we don't learn the lesson, we really don't understand the real meaning behind it. So here he's telling Ezekiel, I'm going to send you out to this rebellious nation because they keep rebelling against me. That even in captivity, they're so hard-headed. Cabeza duro, dung, dung. Like a rock, they still don't get it. They still don't get it. So and then a few verses down in verses 4 and 5 in Ezekiel 2, God continues to tell him, the people to whom I am sending you are obstinate and stubborn. Obstinate means just like you're so stubborn in your ways that no matter how many times somebody tells you something, you're not going to waver. That's what the word obstinate means. So they are stubbornly stubborn. That's how stubborn they are. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. And whether they listen or fail to listen, for they are a rebellious people, they will know that a prophet has been among them. Man, God had to pick two different words that mean stubborn. When God does that, you really are stubborn because he has to like really push it home that they will not listen. They're not going to listen to you. He's even telling Ezekiel, go out and share the word with them. And did you guys pick up on that? You know, and whether they listen or fail to listen. What do you mean? There's an option here, God? So you're sending me to speak to these people knowing that a lot of them are going to fail to listen to me. And then why are you sending me, God? Because once again, we want the answers without the learning. We want the end result, not the process. God didn't say, I'm going to tell you who to go speak to. He says, just go speak to the people. And whether they listen or fail to listen, that ain't your problem, bro. You just do what I'm telling. How often, and this is why I say, we can take any part of the scriptures and it still applies to our life today. How often will we, in an assignment from work, friends, family, or God, if we don't know what the process is going to be, how much more unwilling are we to say yes to the task? You know, Ezekiel is being told, go out and share this word. Go out and tell those rebellious, pain in the rear ends, obstinate, word of the day, people, they're horrible and turn away from their gods and come back to me. But guess what, Ezekiel? A lot of them aren't going to listen to you. Then can I ask why you're sending me, God? Is there an option B here? Because I got a very busy schedule. Very busy schedule, God. Obviously, he didn't check. But he goes on to just tell them, hey, and once again, when we read in Scripture, yes, read the power and authority of which the words are coming from, but also understand what that's going to look like in your life. God even tells them that they are so hard-headed that literally their heads, their foreheads are like stone, that their hearts have become so hardened, it's like stone. But don't worry, Ezekiel, I'm going to make your forehead a stronger stone. He doesn't say that he's going to make it like a marshmallow to a hammer. No. They're hard-headed and they're hard-stoned. I'm just going to make your forehead and your heart even stronger for me. Meaning there's going to be crashing. There's going to be collision. What happens if you take two rocks and smash them together? Well, if one's a little harder than the other one, over time it breaks down, it breaks apart. But it ain't a fun process. And it's not a pretty process. There's going to be damage. There's going to be hurt. There's going to be pain. So God tells him, he doesn't say it's going to be easy. He just says, don't worry, I'll make you a harder stone than what they're made of. I'm not putting that on a t-shirt. You know, you're hard-headed, but I'm harder-headed? No, that doesn't ring. It doesn't have the panache. But God tells him this. Don't worry about it. Just go out and preach the word. Just go out and share the word with people. Doesn't matter whether they listen or not. Just go out to a corner and like a crazy guy, pass out free water bottles and flyers. And whether they open the window or not, go on to the next car and go on to the next car. And you know what's funny is, and I know it's not an exact comparison, but track with me here for a moment. It got to the point that either I was getting a little delirious from lack of water and walking in the sun, but I'm like walking up to cars. It's absolutely free. Come on, free water. I give them the sad face and everything. Come on, free. No. And then once again, I would make them look at me. I'd stand there until, free water. It's absolutely free. I'm giving it away. Okay. Have a good day. Jesus loves you. And then I go to the next car. Surprised nobody called the cops on us. There's a crazy white guy in the middle of the street just handing stuff out. But it got to the point, it did not matter the response from the person. I was doing the task to which I was given to go out and spread the word of God. And we have to understand that. Why do we have to let that absorb? Because how often, and early on in my Christian walk, I did this a lot. Man, I'd go to the pastors at the church I was at, and I would say, but you got to understand, there's this guy at work. I need to save him. I need to save him. And then eventually it dawned on me, you can save nobody. Why? Because I don't have the power of redemption. I just have the message of redemption. And too often we put this thought process, well, if they're not going to listen to me, I'm going to stop telling them. Ooh, I'm so angry. And I would get frustrated and mad. Why am I, and we're going to have a real moment, why am I wasting my time, the precious oxygen in my lungs, to speak to this hard-headed person, and they're not listening? And this is why I love God. That's when he goes, and what were you like? And how was your response to people when you heard about me? And I don't want you to bring that up, God, because I'm saved now. Not like those heathens. You were there last week doing the same thing they're doing. Not now, God. I'm saved. And we can get that attitude. This is why God's telling Ezekiel this. Don't worry, I'll make your head harder than theirs. I would almost question that with, I don't know if you can make my head any harder, because I'd probably break it myself. But yet, God just tells Ezekiel, I just want you to go out and preach the word, brother. Don't worry about their response to it. But here's the one thing he did commission to Ezekiel. And this one rings home, and it should ring home for us. What God did tell Ezekiel is, whether or not they receive the word, you don't worry about that. But here's what I will tell you, Ezekiel. If you do not go out and share the word with those people, and those people suffer eternal damnation, their blood is on your hands. That's what he told Ezekiel. And you know, we love to, let's just skip over those verses, Rich. Come on, I don't like those. No, that's what we need to understand. If we don't share the word that God has given us, and I'm not saying we can't take everything out of the Bible. If it was for a specific person, we need to understand that. But this is something that speaks to all of us. If we have the life-giving salvation of the word within us and the message of Jesus, and we do not share it, well, then that one day when we're in heaven, the pain of that person that we could have shared it with, that will be on us. If we shared the word and they made the choice, and he even told Ezekiel this, but understand, Ezekiel, that if you share the word with them and they choose not to receive it, their blood is not on your hands, not at all. You're free from that one. But man, when I read that he told Ezekiel, if you do not share the message I give you, and they suffer eternal damnation for that, that blood is on your hands. Whoo! I don't want that. I don't want that. And it's amazing because that's what he told Ezekiel. And that's why I try and encourage us. Don't take on a burden that you don't need to take on. We don't save anybody. We just share the message. Ezekiel wasn't saving the nation of Israel. He just shared the message. Moses didn't save the nation of Israel. He just led them with the message. All the times, it's God doing the work. It's the same in us. It's the same in our lives. Don't put an extra weight on you. I'm not called to save anybody. I'm just called to share the message. And guess what? If somebody tells you, yeah, I think you're an idiot for believing that, get away from me. Okay, God bless you. Have a good day. And they tell us that. And that's all we got to do. Okay, hey, God bless you. Because guess what? Just that reaction in and of itself, they're going to go, dang, I thought he was going to snap back at me. The old Rich would have cussed me out. Rich, come here. Come here, buddy. What's going on? And this is what blows me away, and this is why it's amazing to read about people like Ezekiel. I can't wrap my mind around it, and once again, I'm pretty sure I was probably the same way before I gave my life to the Lord. What happens, I don't know, in my brain I'm thinking, that when I share the gospel, I share Jesus with somebody, and it's somebody that looks at you and has known you for years and even says to you, man, I love what God's done in your life because I see the difference in you, but that's not for me. I'm like, are you kidding me? Hang on a second. So if I came in and all of a sudden I lost a bunch of weight, got all jacked up, you're mistaking me for the Rock left and right, I get that. And you ask me, how did you get like that? Well, first off, I got stretched out to 6'3" because I'm only 5'9". But let me tell you what, I bet you money that in no time flat, I could be an influencer on Instagram. Everybody be asking you how you did it, how you made that change. But when it comes to giving the message of God, people see the results. They see the change. They see the difference. They know it's real, yet they still don't want to receive it. Scared. That's exactly what God is telling Ezekiel, and that's exactly what God is telling us today. Just go out and share the message. Harden yourself up. This is why I tell people, don't paint the picture of God. Don't paint the picture of Jesus as this weak little, no. This is the same God who hung on the cross for us. That's strength. I'm going to make you harder and stronger and harder-headed than the people you're going to go up against. Take it like a big boy and a big girl that if they shoot you down, go, you know what? You're not denying me, you're denying God. But he loves you anyways. And always leave that door open, whether you or somebody else, to come in and share that message with them again. And over time, what did I say about those stones? Eventually the harder stone will break down the softer stone. And guess what? Hard heads beat, bam. Maybe they didn't receive the message then, but you left an impact. You left an indentation on them. And then the next one comes, and that harder stone whacks them. And eventually it cracks and breaks down. And then they're willing to receive the message. Don't ever stand in the way of God if he's breaking the bad things down in somebody's life so he can get to the core of the good stuff in the center. We can do that a lot. That's not in my notes. That popped up. That sometimes you got to get down like diamonds. Diamonds got to be pressed and compressed. You know, ask any of the ladies with them on their fingers. They go through a lot of work to get those. That's why they're so expensive. But sometimes it has to be broken down. You got to get all the junk off. You got to get all the outer layers off to get to the sweet core inside that is of value. So don't ever stand in that way. Sometimes you got to let God do his work. And that's why when I love reading the Old Testament so much, because once again, we have this, oh, Jesus loves you. Guess what? He does. But he would rather break that old stuff off you that can lead to sin and death so that he can get to the sweet redemption core inside. And we stand in the way so much because we don't want to let anybody go through hard times. And I get that. But there's a difference between somebody going through a trial of the world's doing and of their own doing. If God needs to break that off of them, just like he did to the people of Israel. This is the nation of Israel. These are his chosen people. They didn't ask to be the chosen people of God. He chose them. So even these people, he would rather let them go through the refining of the fire, leaving them with his glory, saying, I would rather you learn because you're too hard-headed, and just me blessing you is not enough. So I got to let you go through a trial to realize I'm all you got at the end of the day. And he does it to his own nation. See it in our lives. Have that discernment. Ask the Lord for his discerning spirit so that you can help somebody in the church or a friend. Are they going through a trial of their own device that God's trying to break it off of them, or the world's device? And that's where we can kind of help each other out. But here he's telling Ezekiel, just go out and preach the message. Preach the message. Put on your little street shows. Put on a little theatrics for the people, because that's what we love, I kind of liken that to like the pastors nowadays. I love seeing some other pastors and all that. I watched one guy recently that came out with 2 16-foot A-frame ladders so he could make a display. I'm going, that's a lot of work, bro. Okay. Find another way to describe it. But it worked. Stuck in my mind. So that was what Ezekiel was doing. He was just going out and spreading the word of God. He didn't care what the people thought. He didn't care. He just shared the message that God was giving him. And what is that message? Stay faithful to me. Stop chasing other gods. Stop chasing other things. Why is that so important to us in Western culture? To be honest, we become like, we may not think it, we become like the nation of Israel back in the day. We become so blessed and so well off that we forget that it's God who blesses us and puts us there. We start to worship the other gods in our life. Typically, the biggest god we worship is self. But we had the tendency, just like they did, we're no different from them. We're no different from anybody in the Bible, that we can get to the point that we stop worshiping God because we worship something else in our life. And what's incredible is, like I said, it could do a whole series on Ezekiel because as I'm going through, it's 40-something chapters in the book of Ezekiel. It's an amazing book. And you start going through all these different visions that God gave him. He had a vision of the new temple being built, which eventually it was rebuilt in Jerusalem. But God had to let it go through its tearing apart phase so he could build it back up the right way. Just like I was talking about the rocks. God would allow it to be torn down because although God kept his glory there for the people, you noticed how God, at the beginning we talked about, took his glory off the nation. The temple is not the glory. God in the temple is the glory. This church is not the glory. God in this church is the glory. And if God takes his glory off of this church, then we're just hanging out. It's a big difference. Big difference. And we can be going through our times in life where we feel abandoned. I don't have to ask for a show of hands on this one because unless somebody in here has led the perfect life, and it's doubtful, but maybe, all of us at some point in time have felt like, are you there, God? Are you there, God? Did you take your glory and presence off of me? Because I feel like I'm yelling at you and you're not answering. I feel like I'm in the middle of a desert, but you're not answering. How do I know this is real in people's lives? Years ago, when I was going through a dry spell in my life, we went to an art show. Not that I'm an art critic or anything like that. Yoli is. I'm not. I don't even know what type of paintings it is half the time. But there was one painting I came across, and I just stood in front of it staring. And she even walked on to the next thing, and I was still standing there staring. And she goes, "Babe, you good?" I'm like, "Yeah." "What are you looking at?" So that painting. It was a person standing with a small, it was like a canoe or small rowboat, holding it over their head. And they're in the middle of a desert. No, that's it. That's all the picture was. It was a vast picture of a desert, cracked ground, dried out, dead. And then somebody standing in the middle with a boat. What good does a boat do you in the middle of the desert except for maybe shade? And why is this person carrying the boat around in the middle of a desert? You're not going to find anywhere to go rowing along. It's dirt. But it was such an amazing portrait of where I felt my life was at that time, that I'm carrying around this useless device, this useless weight in my life, and I have nowhere of refreshment anywhere. I'm in this dead zone. There's no life, there's no trees, there's no bushes, there's nothing. It's just a desert. And I feel dried out, and I feel used up, and I feel like I can't do anything. That's why that picture spoke to me so amazingly. And I don't know if any of us have ever had that feeling, maybe not. But we have that feeling, just like I'm carrying around all this extra weight. I got no life left in me. You know what, God? I don't even have the energy to pray to you today. I don't even have the energy. And a lot of times, it's not just the energy. I don't have the spirit to pray to you today because I am so upset that I feel like you've abandoned me in the middle of this desert. That I don't even want to pray to you today, God. I'm dried out. I'm all dried up. And that's where I came across these verses. And I'm going to just read these verses because there's times you don't have to give a spin on the Word of God. You just need to read it. And a lot of us may not even realize that this came out of Ezekiel, but if any of us listen to, worship songs, you're going to think of the song Rattle, if you know that song about the dry bones. And it's in Ezekiel chapter 37. It's the first 14 verses. I'm just going to read through them. Here's God giving Ezekiel another vision. It says that the hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. Oh, what do you mean? Like in the middle of a desert? Oh, yeah. Dead valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. Imagine that. It's not just bones. If there's bones, it means something's dead, and they're not just dead, they're dried out. And then he asked me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord." So I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I was prophesying, there was a noise. There was a rattle, a rattling sound. And the bones came together, bone to bone. And I looked, tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them. But there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breathe from the four winds and breath, and breathe into these slain that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them. They came to life and stood on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. We are cut off. I'm all alone. Where are you, God? I'm not here. Where are you? You're not even speaking to me, God. I've been cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord. When I open your graves and bring you up from them, I will put my spirit in you and you will live. I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. That right there should speak to all of us. That right there was me when I was looking at that painting going, I feel like those dry bones in the middle of the desert. I got nothing left in me, no breath, no flesh, no nothing. I'm dead and I'm dried up. But God. He's telling the land of Israel, this is you. You're dried up. You've been taken away. I've left my glory from you. Now you realize you got nothing left but me. Now I will bring you back to life. So what? So that you will know that I am your Lord. Maybe he lets us go through our hard-headed times in the middle of a desert, in the middle of a dry land. He's right there, but we can't feel him. Why? Because we're not connected to him. We are separated from him. And he will let us be in that dried out state so that when we think it's all over and we're ready to throw in the towel, that's when he steps in and goes, now I will bring you back to life. And why am I going to do it, Rich? So that you know it's only me that can do it. You can't say anything else. Nothing you could do can equal what I can do. And I love when God does that. I love when God challenges. When we read verses like this, this is why I tell all people, don't ever be afraid of the Old Testament. Because the Old Testament, it's a gut punch sometimes. But it helps keep us in check that we never want to be like that. That I can remain alive. I can remain with flesh on me. I can remain with breath in me. Because God puts it there. And God keeps me strong. And that he'll use my hard head. I knew he made me hard-headed for a reason. It's so that we can go out and share the message that Ezekiel was supposed to share. We're just supposed to go out and share. We're just supposed to go out and make disciples. We go out and share the message. Let him do the work of who he decides he receives it. It's not on you. That just like Ezekiel, no matter what, just go out and share the message. Stay freshened up in him. Stay strong in him. And let him deal with the people that are receiving the message. It's not up to us to share it with who we want. It's up to him to decide who receives it. We just go out and share it. That's it. So that, yes, we can be exactly like Ezekiel in the Old Testament. Because he has commissioned us. He has given us a mission. He has given us a purpose. He's told us the message to go share. So just go share it. Don't worry about how people take it. If they receive it or not, don't allow their blood to be on our hands. Because we withheld the message that's in our heart to share with them. Amen?